The Heights is right where sisters Lily, 23, and Wileen Kennedy, 33, want to be.
Wileen was a stained glass artist and interested in arts and music, so it was a perfect place for her to move. She could walk to a club and listen to live music.
Wileen and Lily's father, Jack Kennedy, also lives nearby in the Heights.
My grandfather decided to go ahead and just walk over to the house, which was right around the corner. Something did not appear right because the front door was open. Wileen was laying on the ground at the entryway, and Lily was laying at Wileen's feet. He found both of his daughters dead.
He called 911, asking for medical assistance. Each victim had different injuries. Lily, the younger one, appeared to have a single gunshot wound to the head. There was not much blood on the carpet underneath her. There were no wounds on her hands or her feet. I immediately presumed that she was shot first. Wileen had much more obvious, much more severe injuries. She had a gag in her mouth. Her undergarments were pulled down. There was more blood under Wileen's body. She had knife wounds on her throat. There was a wound on her arm that appeared to be a gunshot. For a father like Jack to walk in and find his children, that's beyond imagination.
My uncle was shaking uncontrollably and crying uncontrollably. Oh, I don't know how he even stood up seeing that scene.
Whoever had taken her life had spent some significant time harming Wileen. She was abused, if not tortured, prior to her death.
This crime is extremely horrific. You could tell that this was personal. Whoever did this was definitely concentrated on harming Wileen while her dead sister laid next to her.
I feel like Wileen was the target and that Lily was just used as another way to torture Wileen by killing her first.
Wileen loved dancing and was very social. She had a vintage clothing store in the Heights area.
The vintage clothing store was Wileen's passion. That was her goal, to find the most unique pieces of clothing she could.
There's no sign of forced entry. It seems to speak to the idea that they knew the person and were comfortable enough to let him in, and then things escalated out of control from that point.
She was a very neat, tidy person, but the house was ransacked and things were missing.
That would indicate somebody's looking for something, but there was $500 cash, and there was jewelry left in the house. But the amount of energy expended on Wileen led me to believe that somebody that wanted something from her, or she had really, really made somebody mad.
Results for Lily was negative, so there was no seminal fluid identified. The sexual assault kit that was collected from Wileen, the results for semen tested positive. 1984 types of testing that could be performed was very limited. There was really no DNA testing as we know today.
She was just a young, beautiful woman wanting to have fun in many ways and experimenting in many ways.
Some of the people in the vintage clothing business were really, really into some cocaine dealing. Not to imply that she was a part of that, but had some associates that gave us pause. We spent some time pursuing leads that Wileen's ex-boyfriend had been involved with stealing some drugs from some people. We spent a lot of time searching for people that might have been seeking revenge on him through the girls. There was a lot of dead ends.
It scares you because you think the same thing is going to happen to you or to your child. Like my only daughter, could somebody come back and do that to her? It's so hard to think that a murderer got away.
Jackie Elliott carries on her grandmother's fight to find justice for Wileen and Lily. But decades pass without a decent lead.
There was a cold case unit in the Houston Police Department. When the cold case detective assumed this case, he checked and they found that there was still a viable sample of fluids that had been gathered by the medical examiner at the autopsy.
They had actually developed a DNA profile on it. It turns out we had something substantial, physical evidence to connect someone to the crime.
They added that DNA to a national database. Unfortunately, we never got any matches.
Okay, we have someone's DNA, but we still don't know who it belongs to. But hopefully, they will be incarcerated at one point, and then bam, we have a match. I mean, that's all you can hope for.
Then the case that was cold for 30 years heats up.
A defendant who had earned a very, very long sentence said, "I've got something to barter with for my freedom."
He mentioned the Kennedy sisters, but he right away mentioned who had committed these murders. The name of the murderer was Edmund Deegan.
The informant says Edmund Deegan came to him back in 1984 in Houston, asking for help.
So my client and Edmund Deegan were associates. Deegan came over, and with the duffel bag with stuff in there, Deegan told my client that he had just killed 2 people.
The cold case investigator began checking that information out. It turned out Deegan was associated to varying degrees of activity with Wileen in the vintage clothing business. He was actually a competitor of hers.
My uncle, the brother of Wileen and Lily, immediately recognized the name Edmund Deegan, being one of Wileen's business associates, and had met Edmund Deegan. So it was a little startling that it was someone that Wileen actually knew.
Houston police tracked down Deegan and questioned him.
I promise you, I did not kill anyone. I don't care what anybody says. I was not involved in that murder of that girl. Right. It's not true, officer. I mean, I'm serious.
You willing to give me a swab? Like a buckle swab?
Sure, I guess so. I mean, I don't have any choice, do I?
Well, it's better if you just go along with it.
Yeah, I'm going along with it.
Instead of arguing with it.
Yeah.
To deny taking a swab would mean that all the other answers were false. So Deegan had no choice.
Just rub your inside of both cheeks together. Just leave them together, just rub them.
And the detective got what he needed.
All right.
That's good.
On December 26th of 2014, we issued a DNA report. The conclusion was Edmund Deegan cannot be excluded.
When we do get that hit, it is elation. It is, oh my goodness, we got you.
But the prosecutor was very clear to me that this case was going to be hard. Just because someone raped someone doesn't automatically mean they murdered them. Unfortunately, Other than the DNA, there's no other tangible evidence.
Because prosecutors don't have a strong hand to play, they're forced to make a devil's bargain with a killer.
The prosecutor was not able to connect Edmund Deegan physically to Lily's death, whereas Wileen had the DNA evidence on her body from that rape kit. The plea bargain was only pleading guilt to the murder of Wileen Kennedy. It dropped the rape charges and it did not list Lily Kennedy. My Aunt Lily is the unnamed victim in all of this.
I was kind of thrown aback by the amount of sentence that he received.
It's very difficult, a 15-year sentence.
Was I happy with that? No. A human's life, to steal one and deprive one is worth more than that. I believe that he went to find cocaine, according to the story, that she had some hidden from her ex-boyfriend, and that things did not proceed the way he anticipated, but he did have a weapon with him. He had 2 weapons with him. And when things went south, he ended up using those weapons.
The news has Jackie and her family reeling. And there is one final injustice ahead.
A Texas law let him out after serving less than 7 years of a 15-year sentence.
Any inmate, it didn't matter if you murdered somebody, if you raped somebody, even if you were a serial killer who committed a crime in Texas between 1977 and 1987 was eligible for automatic release as long as they maintained good behavior in prison. I guess they never thought that the after effects will haunt this state forever.
6 years? Really? For such a violent, disgusting act. The only place he belongs is behind bars or in a grave.